The Galactic Combat Academy stood at the heart of Station Orion, a vast silver structure that floated above the glowing blue curve of a planet below. Every year, hundreds of cadets from different star systems came there to learn about leadership, tactics, and combat discipline. It was a place where the future soldiers and commanders of the galaxy were shaped. The academy was famous not only for its training methods, but also for its stories. Every corridor, every hall, had some legend attached to it. And among those legends, there was one that never failed to make new cadets curious. It was the legend of the Earthborn. The first day of training began with the usual excitement. Cadets gathered inside the central hall where the combat instructor was waiting. His name was Instructor Vel, a tall figure with gray skin, a scar on his face, and calm golden eyes. He had seen many battles before he became a teacher. When he spoke, even the most arrogant cadets paid attention. "Welcome to the Galactic Combat Academy," said his voice steady. "You have all come from proud worlds, carrying the strength of your species. Some of you have claws, some have wings, some can move faster than light. But remember, this place will not treat you as special. Every one of you will be tested." The cadets looked around at one another, sizing up their competition. There were reptilian warriors from Threx, energy-based beings from Xinar, and tall armored beings from Voltrix. In the middle of them were the smaller races, those who relied more on agility and intellect. Instructor Vel paused, then continued. "Before we begin combat orientation, there is one rule you must always remember. Do not challenge an Earthborn." The words caused a murmur in the hall. The cadets exchanged puzzled looks. Some tilted their heads in confusion, others tried to recall the name. "Earthborn," one of them asked. "What is that supposed to mean?" "There is no world called Earth in the records." Vel looked at the speaker. "That is true," he said. "Earth no longer exists. It was lost long ago. But some of its people survived. They are rare, and they are not to be taken lightly." A cadet from Voltrix named Dren crossed his arms. His armor glowed faintly under the lights. He was tall, with deep green eyes, and an expression that carried confidence close to arrogance. "Instructor," he said, "I have heard of the Death World myth. Some say Earth was so hostile that even the plants were dangerous. But that is only a story. You cannot expect us to believe that a small extinct species is worth fearing." Al's gaze shifted toward Dren. His tone did not change, but there was a weight in his words. "You may believe what you wish. I am not here to change your beliefs. I am here to keep you alive. If you ever meet one of them, remember my warning." The room stayed quiet for a moment, and laughter broke out from a group of cadets at the back. They were amused by the idea of fearing some lost species. Dren smirked, as if the warning was a joke meant for children. At the back of the hall, one cadet did not laugh. Her name was Mira. She sat silently, her hands resting neatly on the table, her gaze focused on the instructor. She had joined the academy under a standard scholarship. Nothing about her seemed unusual. Her brown hair was tied back neatly, and her uniform was simple. To others, she looked like one of the weaker recruits. But Instructor Vel noticed the way she listened. She did not smile, she did not frown. She absorbed every word. When the briefing ended, the cadets moved toward their training sections. The day was divided into physical conditioning, tactics study, and combat simulation. The training ground was a massive arena surrounded by energy walls that could change shape to fit different environments. As they entered, the cadets talked excitedly about their first match. "I hope they let us spar today," said one of the reptilian cadets. Flexing his claws, "They will," Dren replied confidently. "And I will make sure everyone knows who the best fighter is by the end of the day." The other cadets cheered. Dren had already gathered a group of followers. His people from Voltrix were known for high-gravity adaptation, giving them stronger muscles and denser bones. He was sure that no one from another world could match him. Instructor Vel entered the arena. His eyes scanned the class. "We begin with simple sparring," he said. "The goal is not to destroy your opponent, but to learn control and observation. A good warrior wins without wasting energy." The matches began. Cadets fought one another with controlled energy, each trying to show skill. The air, filled with the sound of clashing strikes and energy bursts, Dren defeated his first 3 opponents easily. Each time, he raised his hand toward the cheering crowd, enjoying the attention. Vel watched quietly. His expression did not change. He had seen many strong cadets before. Strength without control was only noise. After Dren's 3rd victory, he turned toward the instructor. "No one here can face me," he said with a proud grin. "Perhaps you can bring one of those Earthborn you mentioned. I would like to test them." A ripple of laughter spread again. Vel did not smile. His voice stayed calm. "Be careful what you ask for, cadet. Earthborn do not fight for sport." Dren shrugged. "Maybe they are just legends. I do not believe in ghosts." Before Vel could respond, a quiet voice came from behind the line of cadets. "Instructor," it said, "may I volunteer for the next round?" Everyone turned. Mira had stepped forward. She looked calm, almost gentle. Her expression showed no anger, no pride. She stood with her hands behind her back, waiting for permission. Dren laughed. You look like you could barely lift your training stick." Vel studied her for a moment. There was something in her eyes, something steady and grounded. He nodded slowly. "Very well, Cadet Myra. You may take the next match." The crowd whispered among themselves. Some were curious, others doubtful. Dren smiled confidently as he stepped forward to meet her. The arena field shimmered as the energy barrier adjusted its boundaries. The air grew heavy with anticipation. Vel raised his hand. "Standard rules. No lethal force. Begin." The two faced each other. Dren's armor flared as he activated his shield mode. His stance was aggressive, ready to strike. Myra stood still, her hands relaxed at her sides. For a moment, she looked like she was not even paying attention. Dren charged forward with a roar. His speed was impressive for his size. The ground shook under his steps. But as he swung, Mira moved, not with panic, but with smooth precision. She shifted her weight and let his strike pass by. Her hand brushed his shoulder lightly, almost too quick to notice. Dren tried again, this time faster. Each blow missed by an inch. Myra moved like water flowing around rocks, her steps small and efficient. The other cadets started to notice that she was not dodging randomly. Every motion was calculated. Vel watched closely. He recognized the pattern. Controlled breathing, balanced movement, no wasted energy. The mark of a human martial discipline, something he had seen only once before. Dren grew frustrated. He shouted and increased his power, swinging wildly. Mira waited for the right moment. Then, with a soft turn, she redirected his force, using his own momentum. Dren stumbled forward, lost his balance, and fell to one knee. The match ended with a single, controlled move. The arena went silent. No one laughed now. Vel raised his hand. "Match over. Wim wins." Dren looked up, his face a mix of disbelief and confusion. Mira offered him her hand, helping him stand. "Good match," she said politely. Her tone carried no mockery, only respect. As the cadets dispersed, whispers filled the hall. "How did she move like that?" one asked. "Not that strong," another said. "Maybe she used hidden tech." Vel stopped them with a firm tone. "Enough. Class dismissed." Myra stayed behind, cleaning her practice area. Vel approached her quietly. "You handled yourself well," he said. "Thank you, instructor," she replied. He looked into her calm eyes. "Tell me, Cadet Mira, where are you from?" She hesitated only for a second. "I come from a small colony, far from the core systems. It is called Terra Nova." Vel nodded slowly. Terra Nova, a fitting name. When she turned to leave, he spoke again. "You have the look of someone who has known struggle." She glanced back with a faint smile. "My people believe that comfort weakens the spirit." Vel watched her go. The sound of her footsteps echoed in the empty arena. He knew then that his warning had not been wasted. There was one Earthborn among them, and her presence would change everything. The next morning began with the low hum of the Academy's central alarm. It was not a warning alarm, but the sound that marked the start of daily training. The hallways filled with cadets walking in groups, talking about the previous day's sparring matches. And every conversation seemed to lead back to one topic: Miraz's victory over Dren. No one could believe what had happened. Dren had been considered the strongest new recruit of their class. His strength and skill were above the average standard, and yet he had fallen to a cadet who had looked completely ordinary. Many tried to explain it in their own ways. Some said she had used hidden technology. Others whispered that she had cheated somehow. But no one could explain how such clean, effortless movement could come from a weak-looking human girl. Inside the cafeteria, Dren sat at a table surrounded by his group of friends. The light from the upper dome reflected off his armor. His mood was tense. The humiliation from yesterday was still burning inside him. Every time someone laughed nearby, he thought they were laughing at him. A friend tried to comfort him. "You fought well," said a tall cadet with crystal blue skin. Maybe she had some secret training. The instructor should not have allowed such an unfair match. Dren clenched his jaw. "No," he said firmly. "It was not unfair. She beat me in a clean fight. But I will not let that happen again." He stood up, his eyes glowing faintly with determination. "Today, I will challenge her again." The others looked uneasy. The instructor said the matches are assigned, one reminded him. "Then I will make it official," Dren replied. "I will request a sanctioned rematch. I want the entire class to see it. If she refuses, it will show everyone she only won by chance." Across the cafeteria, Mira was sitting alone at another table. She was eating quietly, not looking around or joining any of the noisy groups. Her posture was calm, her movements slow and controlled. It was clear she was not affected by the attention. A few cadets watched her from a distance, but were too nervous to approach. They did not know what to say to someone who had beaten Dren so easily. When Dren walked toward her, the crowd went silent. The sound of his boots echoed across the floor. Mira looked up, her expression calm. "Cadet Mira," he said in a firm tone, "I want to challenge you to a rematch." Mira blinked once, then set down her spoon. "You want to challenge me again?" "Yes," he said. "Yesterday was too sudden. You took me by surprise. I want a fair match, under proper rules, in front of the whole class." Mira looked at him for a moment. Then she nodded slightly. "If the instructor allows it, I will accept." Dren's expression eased a little. He had expected her to refuse, but she had agreed without hesitation. That confidence only made him more determined to prove himself. Later that morning, when Instructor Vel arrived in the training arena, Dren stepped forward immediately. "Instructor," he said, "I request a formal rematch with Cadet Myra." The instructor looked at him calmly. "And what is your reason for this challenge?" Dren straightened his back. "I want to test my limits and correct my mistake. I was not prepared yesterday." Val looked from Dren to Myra, who stood quietly at the back. "Do you accept the challenge, Cadet Myra?" "Yes, instructor," she replied. Vel crossed his arms and sighed softly. "Very well. But remember, this is training, not combat. No one is to be harmed. If I see any loss of control, the match will end immediately." The arena filled with excitement. Every cadet wanted to witness the rematch. They surrounded the energy barrier, waiting for the duel to begin. Even instructors from nearby sections came to watch. There was something about Mira's calm that drew everyone's curiosity. As both cadets stepped into the ring, Vel gave his usual reminder. "Respect your opponent. Use your skill, not your anger. Begin." Dren moved first, this time with more patience. He had studied Mira's movements from the recordings. He knew she relied on precision and redirection. So instead of charging in with brute force, he tried to keep distance and strike carefully Mira. However, moved with the same calm grace as before. Every time he adjusted, she mirrored his rhythm perfectly. Her eyes stayed on his shoulders, not his hands. Reading his intention before the strike even began, Dren launched a quick combination. Mira blocked once, stepped aside, and returned a soft counterstrike that touched his armor's edge. The impact was small, but the signal from the arena registered it as a valid hit. "1 point for Mira," the audience murmured. Dren's expression hardened. He tried again, faster this time. His shield flashed with energy. Myra avoided the strike smoothly and struck back with the same quiet precision. "Another point for her." Vel watched silently. His gaze was sharp. Every move told him what he already suspected: Mira was not fighting to win. She was fighting to teach. She never used more power than needed, never struck to hurt. She moved as if she had practiced this thousands of times before. The match continued for several rounds. Dren began to tire. His breathing grew heavier while Mira's remained steady. After the 10th exchange, she ended the match with one soft push that sent him backward without force. The arena lights flickered to signal the end. Mira had won again. The crowd was quiet, almost shocked. Vel stepped forward. Match over. Mira, 2 points. Dren, 0. Mira stepped back, bowed slightly to Dren, and said, "Thank you for the challenge." Dren did not reply. His pride had been struck again, but this time the feeling was different. There was no anger, only confusion and respect. He looked at her for a long moment before nodding slightly. "You fight differently," he said finally. "No one moves like that." Mira smiled softly. "It is not about strength. It is about control. My people believe that real power is not in the hand, but in the mind." Vel dismissed the crowd, but as they left, whispers continued to spread. Some were impressed, others felt uneasy. They had all trained in combat since childhood, yet this quiet cadet had defeated their strongest fighter twice without using armor or energy weapons. When the arena emptied, Vel approached Mira again. "Walk with me," he said. They left the arena and entered one of the quiet corridors that overlooked the academy gardens. Artificial sunlight shone through the glass ceiling. Vel stopped near the railing and turned toward her. "You are holding back," he said simply. Mira did not deny it. "You are right, instructor," Vel nodded slowly. "I know the movement you used. I have seen it before, long ago. It belongs to a style that was believed lost with the fall of Earth." Mira looked at him directly. "Then you already know the truth." Vel folded his arms. "You are Earthborn, aren't you?" She hesitated, then nodded. "My ancestors came from Earth. They left before it was destroyed. Our colony was small, hidden, but we survived. We kept our traditions alive, even when others forgot them." Vel's expression softened. "I have not seen an Earthborn in decades. Your kind has a reputation that even soldiers still speak of. They say humans were fragile but fearless, that you could adapt to any world." Mira looked out the window. "It is not about fearlessness. It is about survival. Earth taught us to keep going, no matter how bad things become. That is why we train the way we do. Every motion has a reason, every breath a purpose." Vel nodded slowly. "The academy will notice you soon. Some will respect you. Others will fear you." Mira turned back toward him. "Then I will do what my people always do. I will endure." The day passed, and by evening the story of Mira's second victory had spread to every section of the academy. Even cadets from other divisions came to see her. Some came to learn from her, others only to look at the person who carried the spirit of a forgotten world. Dren sat alone on a training bench later that night. He replayed the fight in his mind again and again. He had been stronger, faster, and better equipped. Yet none of it mattered. What he had seen in Mira's eyes during the fight was not arrogance. It was focus, something he had never felt himself. He looked at his reflection in the polished floor and muttered quietly. She fought like she already knew how this would end. Behind him, one of his friends approached. "Are you still thinking about the fight?" "Yes," Dren said. "I thought strength was everything. But she showed me something different. I do not understand it yet, but I will learn." The friend smiled. "Maybe you should ask her to train with you." Dren thought for a moment, then nodded. "Maybe I will." The next morning, when Mira entered the training hall, Dren was already there. He stood in the center, waiting. When she saw him, he bowed politely. "Cadet Mira," he said, "I would like to train with you. Not as an opponent this time, but as a student." Mira looked surprised but pleased. "If you truly wish to learn, then yes, I will train with you." Instructor Vel watched from the upper deck, a faint smile forming on his usually calm face. The legend of the Earthborn was not a myth anymore. It had returned, not through conquest or pride, but through patience, discipline, and strength born from struggle. And this was only the beginning. The morning air at the Galactic Combat Academy was alive with energy. The Academy's central training arena had been cleared and transformed into a full combat simulation environment. The walls glowed softly with shifting holographic landscapes, creating the illusion of a dense forest with uneven terrain. It was a new training setting designed to test strategy, adaptability, and skill. Every cadet who stepped inside would feel the challenge, but today, the arena held more attention than usual. Cadets from all sections had gathered on the observation decks. The whispers and quiet excitement spread through the stands. Everyone wanted to see the duel between Myra and Dren. It was no longer just a test of strength. It was a test of spirit. The instructor Vel stood at the upper deck watching calmly. He had been present during Mira's previous matches. He knew that her style was not about brute force. Her strength lay in control, perception, and timing. Dren entered the arena first. His movements were careful, precise, and calculated. He carried himself with confidence, but the earlier defeats still weighed on his mind. He activated his armor shields, which glimmered with a soft golden light. His steps were measured, as if he were ready for any sudden change in the terrain. Myra followed, her movements quiet and deliberate. She did not wear armor. Her training uniform was simple, her hands unprotected. Yet every cadet who had watched her before understood that her calm was a weapon in itself. She scanned the arena silently, observing the subtle changes in the holographic forest, noting uneven ground, low branches, and hidden pathways. Instructor Vel raised his hand. Cadets, remember the rules. No lethal force. Focus on skill, awareness, and control. Begin. Dren launched forward immediately. He tested the terrain first, making calculated steps to avoid obstacles. He swung his gauntlet carefully, attempting to strike Mira. She dodged with small, flowing movements, barely shifting her weight. Almost like she anticipated his motion before it happened. The spectators gasped. Many cadets whispered to one another, trying to understand how she could move so efficiently without armor or weapons. Dren paused for a moment. He realized that attacking head-on would not work. Instead, he shifted strategy. He began feinting attacks, pretending to strike from one direction, then changing angles quickly. Mira adjusted to each feint with grace, stepping lightly, balancing her body perfectly, and maintaining distance. After several exchanges, Mira made her first counterattack. It was subtle, almost imperceptible. She touched Dren's shoulder with her palm, just enough to shift his balance. The motion was gentle, but it registered on the arena's sensors. One point, the spectators murmured in surprise. Dren's eyes widened slightly. He had not expected to be touched so easily. He straightened and attacked with more precision, trying to measure her movements. Mira did not move erratically. She responded carefully, keeping herself calm, like water flowing around a stone. Vel observed closely. He knew that Mira was not trying to win by overpowering Dren. Her objective was to teach him, to show him the value of patience, awareness, and timing. Every movement she made was intentional, efficient, and controlled. Dren tried a more aggressive approach. He jumped high, aiming to strike from above, testing her reaction to vertical attacks. Mira did not panic. She sidestepped at the exact moment, placing herself slightly behind him, and tapped him lightly on the back. Another point for her. Dren landed and spun quickly, his pride slightly bruised. He shouted, not in anger, but in frustration. How do you move like this? No one has ever been this precise. Mira's voice remained calm. It is not about strength alone. It is about balance, focus, and understanding your opponent. Every action has a purpose. Dren gritted his teeth. He knew she was correct, yet he struggled to adapt. The more he fought, the more he realized that raw power was not enough. Mira's style forced him to observe, predict, and think faster than he ever had before. The fight continued for several rounds. Each exchange became faster and more complex. Dren attempted spinning strikes, low kicks, and quick maneuvers to catch her off guard. Mira responded to each with measured movements, conserving energy while slowly guiding him into positions that tested his balance and control. The spectators were silent now, watching every step, every gesture. Even cadets who had mocked the legend of Earthborn were now observing in awe. Some whispered to one another, "She is not just strong. She is teaching him to fight differently." Others said this is how humans were described: calm, precise, and unpredictable. Vel remained focused. His hands rested behind his back as he observed the two cadets. He had fought humans in his youth, and he remembered their adaptability, their ability to turn disadvantage into advantage. Mira reminded him of those old stories. Dren tried one last powerful maneuver. He gathered energy into his gauntlet for a strong strike, aiming to end the match decisively. Mira anticipated the move. She stepped to the side at the perfect moment, lightly redirected his momentum, and used his own energy to guide him into a gentle fall. Dren landed on one knee, exhausted but unharmed. The arena sensors confirmed the hit. Mira had scored another point. The match ended immediately. The spectators erupted in applause. Cadets clapped, cheered, and whispered excitedly. Dren looked up at Mira, his chest heaving. He had been strong, but he had never faced someone like her. His eyes reflected not anger, but respect. Myra stepped toward him and extended her hand. "Good match," she said softly. Her tone was polite, calm, and confident. Dren accepted the hand and stood. "You are unlike anyone I have ever faced," he said quietly. "I thought strength alone was everything. But you have shown me there is more to fighting than raw power." Mira smiled. "Strength is not just in the body. It is in the mind, the spirit, and the awareness of your surroundings. That is what my people learned from Earth." Bell raised his hand to signal the end of the session. Match concluded. Both cadets demonstrated skill, control, and adaptability. This is what true training looks like. Take note, everyone. As the other cadets filed out of the arena, many came forward to speak with Myra. Some asked her to teach them techniques. Others simply wanted to observe her movements closely, hoping to learn something from the human style she demonstrated. Dren remained behind. He stood silently for a moment, then looked at her. "Would you train with me?" he asked. "Not as opponents, but as a student. I want to understand how you move, how you think." Myra considered for a moment, then nodded. "If you truly want to learn, I will help you. But you must focus and be patient. It will not be easy." Dren straightened. "I am ready to learn," he said firmly. "I want to understand what you taught me today." Bell observed the exchange from above. He felt satisfaction. The purpose of the academy was not just to teach strength, but to inspire growth, understanding, and discipline. Mira had done more than win a match. She had changed the perspective of a cadet, a future warrior. Later, when the arena had emptied, Vel approached Mira. "You have not only proven yourself," he said softly. "You have reminded everyone what Earthborn were capable of. The Academy will take notice. They will respect you, and some may fear the skill you carry. Use it wisely." Mira nodded. "I will, instructor. My people survived because we used our skill responsibly. That is what I intend to do here." The sun of the artificial dome reflected off her calm expression. Vel watched her walk toward the training rooms. He knew that this was only the beginning of her journey at the academy. The legend of Earthborn had returned, not in anger or arrogance, but in quiet strength, discipline, and wisdom. By the end of the day, stories of the duel spread through the academy halls. Cadets from every division spoke about Myra's precision, patience, and control. Dren continued training with her guidance, learning the human way of fighting, and the academy, which had once doubted the myth of Earthborn, began to understand that true strength was not measured only in power, but in control, strategy, and spirit. Mira looked out over the observation deck one last time before leaving the arena. She saw cadets practicing, teaching, and learning. She knew the journey ahead would be long, but she also knew that every challenge would only make her stronger. The academy would test her, the students would challenge her, and the instructors would judge her. But she was ready. The morning sun of the artificial dome bathed the Galactic Combat Academy in warm golden light. The corridors buzzed with the sound of cadets moving between training sections. Some cadets practiced hand-to-hand techniques. Others adjusted their armor or energy weapons, but all eyes, knowingly or unknowingly, followed Mira, the quiet cadet who had defeated. Dren twice now walked with a calm confidence that drew attention without effort. Inside the central arena, Instructor Vel waited near the observation deck. Today was not just another training day. He had decided to reveal to the cadets more about the history of Earthborn. It was a subject that had been discussed only in whispers before. Many believed it was a myth, a story told to make young cadets cautious. But Vel knew the truth. Mira represented a living connection to a lost world, people who had survived where others had failed. The arena filled quickly. Cadets crowded in, whispering excitedly. Some were nervous. They had trained for months, yet a single human had demonstrated skill and control beyond what they thought possible. Dren, sitting near the center, looked toward Myra with a mixture of respect and curiosity. He had learned more from her than any instructor in the academy could teach. Vel's voice echoed through the arena. Today, you will witness more than combat. You will learn about the history of those you call Earthborn. You will understand why my warning was important. Listen carefully, cadets. The room grew silent. Even the whispering cadets felt the weight of the moment. Vel began. Many centuries ago, Earth was a planet of extreme conditions. Its environment tested every being that lived there. Those who survived were not necessarily the strongest, but the most adaptable. They could think, react, and endure in ways that few other species could. Humans, or Earthborn, developed skills not only to survive their world, but to thrive against impossible odds. They became masters of observation, strategy, and control. Their strength was not obvious at first glance, but once revealed, it was unmatched. The cadets listened with wide eyes. Some whispered to each other. So they really existed? One asked. Yes, Vel continued. But Earth was destroyed in a great catastrophe. The planet's surface became uninhabitable, and most of its people were thought lost. Those who survived carried their traditions, their techniques, and their spirit across the galaxy. Myra is one of those descendants. She is not just a cadet. She is a living example of the strength and wisdom of a species that adapted to survive against the impossible. Mira stood quietly. Listening to Vel, she felt a warmth of recognition, but also the weight of responsibility. The history of her people was not a story for entertainment. It was a lesson, a guide, and a warning. She understood that every move she made in the academy would now carry attention, scrutiny, and expectation. Vel looked at her, then addressed the crowd again. Many of you may have believed that strength is measured by size, power, or weaponry. Mira has shown that it is measured by control, awareness, and the ability to adapt. You will have the opportunity to learn from her. Not everyone will accept it, but those who do will gain skills far beyond ordinary training. A murmur of excitement ran through the cadets. Some exchanged eager glances. Others, like Dren, nodded silently. They understood that this was not just a lesson in history, but a chance to grow in ways they had never imagined. After the assembly, Mira was asked to demonstrate her techniques. She agreed, moving into the center of the arena. The terrain changed to a more complex environment, with uneven ground, low walls, and holographic obstacles. Cadets gathered at safe distances to observe. Myra began with simple movements, showing basic stances and footwork. Her motions were deliberate, controlled, and precise. She spoke softly as she demonstrated. Every movement has a purpose. Every step must maintain balance. Do not waste energy on unnecessary motion. Observe your opponent, predict their actions, and respond accordingly. This is the way we trained on Earth. This is the way to survive. Cadets watched closely. Even those who had trained for years found themselves challenged by the simplicity and clarity of her method. Dren approached her carefully, watching her footwork and the flow of her balance. Can you show me how to redirect force? He asked. Mira nodded. Yes, but you must focus. You cannot force it. You must allow your opponent's energy to guide your response. Dren positioned himself opposite her. He moved carefully, attempting a controlled strike. Mira sidestepped, guided his motion with a gentle touch, and shifted his balance. He stumbled slightly, but remained upright. Again, she said, "Feel the motion, do not resist it." Several repetitions followed. Dren began to understand the principle. It was not about attacking harder, but about observing, timing, and responding. Slowly, he began to mirror her movements, his strikes becoming less about power and more about control. The other cadets observed with amazement. Many had focused on strength and weapons in their training, but here was a living demonstration of a philosophy that emphasized adaptability and awareness. The difference was clear. Humans, even in their small size, could surpass what others achieved through pure force. Vel observed the session from the upper deck. He noted the attention of every cadet. He saw curiosity, respect, and determination growing in their eyes. This was why Earthborn had been feared and respected in their time. Their strength came not only from their bodies, but from their understanding, discipline, and spirit. After the demonstration, Vel addressed the class once more. "Remember this lesson. Strength alone is not enough. You must observe, adapt, and control. Mira has shown you the value of these skills. Those who understand and practice them will become true warriors." As the cadets left the arena, many approached Mira. They asked questions about her techniques, her training, and the history of her people. She answered with patience, explaining principles and methods without showing arrogance. Her calm presence inspired confidence rather than fear. Dren stayed behind, reflecting on what he had learned. He realized that his previous victories in sparring had relied heavily on raw strength. Mira had shown him a way to enhance skill through observation, patience, and control. "I did not understand before," he said quietly. "Strength is not enough. You have to see the flow of battle, anticipate it, and respond correctly." Mira nodded. "Exactly. That is what Earth taught us, and that is why we survived when others did not." Vel joined them quietly. "Do not underestimate what you have seen today. You are witnessing the principles that allowed a lost world to survive. Use them wisely." As the day ended, Mira returned to her quarters. She reflected on the events of the past few days. She understood the weight of her presence at the academy. The cadets looked to her not only as a competitor, but also as a teacher and example. She had to maintain her calm, her discipline, and her awareness. Her movements, her words, her actions would now carry the lessons of Earthborn. In the quiet of her room, Mira practiced alone. She moved through stances and footwork she had known since childhood. Each motion was deliberate, each breath controlled. She reminded herself that her people had survived through focus and understanding, not through brute force. Tomorrow, she knew, new challenges awaited. Other cadets would want to test themselves against her. Some might come with curiosity, others with pride or skepticism. Yet she was ready. Every action she took would reflect the spirit of Earthborn. Every movement would carry a lesson. Instructor Vel walked the corridors of the academy that evening, observing cadets as they finished their training. He thought of Mira and her quiet confidence. She had proven herself not only in combat, but also in teaching and guiding others. He knew that her presence would change the academy in ways that went beyond victories in matches, the revelation of Mira's heritage. The demonstration of her skill and the lessons she shared had begun to reshape the perspective of the cadets. The legend of Earthborn was no longer a myth whispered in corners. It was alive. It was present in a quiet cadet who moved with calm strength and patience. As night fell over the academy, the artificial sky glowed with stars. Mira stood at a balcony, looking out at the distant planets and the expanse of space. She thought of Earth, of the stories her ancestors had passed down, and of the responsibility she now carried. She understood that the journey ahead would be filled with challenges, but she felt ready to meet them with the same patience, control, and discipline that had allowed her people to survive across generations. And so, the academy settled into quiet for the night. But the presence of Mira, the Earthborn, continued to inspire, challenge, and teach every cadet who had witnessed her skill. The morning after the battle, the Galactic Academy was quiet. The great halls that once echoed with laughter and talk now felt heavy with new respect. Cadets walked slowly, their voices low, and their eyes filled with wonder whenever they saw Mira, the human girl who had done what no one thought possible. Instructors, guards, and even the senior officers had seen the recording of her duel with Instructor Varen. It had spread across the station within hours. Every screen replayed the same moment again, and again the calm way Mira had stood still. The quick motion when she disarmed Varen, and the silent bow that followed. For the first time, the word Earthborn did not sound like a warning. It sounded like a name of honor. Mira sat quietly on a bench near the training field. The early light touched her face, and she breathed slowly, as if she was listening to the sound of earth in her memory, the rain, and the song of old forests. She missed her homeworld. Few remembered Earth, but to her, it was more than a story. It was a place that shaped her bones and heart. When Instructor Varen walked toward her, the other cadets stepped back. They still could not believe the same man who had warned them not to challenge Earthborn had lost 2-1. But Varen's face held no anger. There was only respect. He stopped a few steps from her. "Cadet Mira," he said, his voice calm, "you fought with honor and wisdom. You showed control, patience, and strength that most warriors here lack. You did not win by power. You won by understanding. Tell me, how did you learn this?" Mira looked up. Her brown eyes were steady. "On Earth, Instructor, everything tries to break you. The cold, the hunger, the storms, even time. You learn to move with it, not against it. You learn to stay calm when fear comes. You learn to stand even when everything falls." Varen nodded slowly. "You speak of survival as a teacher." She smiled a little. "Yes, Earth is a teacher. Every stone, every storm, every struggle teaches us to rise again." For a moment, they stood in silence. Around them, more cadets began to gather, listening. Varen turned to them, his tall figure casting a shadow on the ground. "All of you saw the challenge yesterday," he said. "You saw a human face me and stand unshaken. I warned you not to challenge Earthborn because I believed they were too dangerous, too unpredictable. But now I see why they are feared. Not because they destroy, because they endure." The young cadets listened, their eyes wide. Some felt shame for laughing at Mira before. Others felt curiosity, wanting to know more about this strange world called Earth. Varen continued. "Every world has its lesson. Some teach peace, others teach speed, some teach wisdom. But Earth teaches survival. On that world, life must fight for every breath, and those who rise from it carry that strength inside forever." Mira stood up, looking at the crowd. She could see their faces, some blue, some silver, some scaled, some with fur, all different, all watching her closely. "Instructor Varen is right," she said softly. "Earth is not kind. It tests you every day. It takes from you and gives nothing for free. But it also gives something special. It gives heart. You can lose everything and still stand. You can fall 100 times and still rise. That is what it means to be Earthborn." Her words carried across the field, simple and strong. There was no pride in her tone, only truth. The crowd was silent. Even the wind seemed to pause. Then Varen spoke again. "Cadet Mira, would you teach this lesson to others?" She blinked in surprise. "Teach, Instructor." "Yes. I want you to lead a small group of cadets. Show them the way you train, the way you move, the way you think. Let them understand what makes Earthborn different." For a moment, Mira hesitated. She had never thought of herself as a leader. On Earth, survival was personal, not shared. But here, among the stars, maybe her lesson could help others. She nodded slowly. "I will try, Instructor," Varen smiled, the first smile anyone had seen from him in years. "Then let this be your first command." By afternoon, Mira stood in the practice hall with 10 cadets waiting before her. They were a mix of species, some tall and thin, some with glowing skin, some with mechanical implants. All looked unsure, Mira faced them calmly. "I am not here to make you fight harder," she said. "I am here to teach you how to think like Earthborn. The first rules stand up when you fall." One cadet, a scaled boy named Tyron, frowned. "That sounds too simple." Mira nodded. "It is simple, but not easy. You will see." She began their training without weapons. She made them run until their legs burned. She made them climb, fall, and rise again. She made them hold heavy stones for hours while the wind from the open field pushed against them. Some complained. Some wanted to quit. But she never shouted or punished them. She only said, "Again." By the third day, only half remained. The others had given up. Mira said nothing about them. She only smiled at the ones who stayed. "Now you begin to understand," she told them. "Strength is not in your arms or your claws or your wings. It is here." She touched her chest. Inside, Tyron, covered in dust, looked up at her. "You mean heart?" She nodded. "Yes, heart. That is what Earth teaches." News of Mira's training spread fast. More cadets began to watch from the sides. They saw that those who trained with her grew faster, sharper, and calmer. They learned to think before striking. They learned to face fear instead of running from it. Even Instructor Varen came to watch. He saw how Myra's quiet leadership changed the way the others trained. He saw how her lessons went beyond fighting. They built will. One evening, after training ended, Varen called her to his office. The stars outside his window glowed softly against the dark sky. "Mira," he said, "you have done more than I asked. You have changed the way this academy sees humans." Mira shook her head. "I only showed them what Earth taught me." Varen leaned forward. "Do you know why the galaxy feared your kind? Because long ago, when humans first reached the stars, they never stopped pushing. They explored even when told not to. They fought for worlds that others left to die. Some say they vanished because they went too far. Others say they are still out there, watching. You, Mira, reminded them that the human spirit never vanished." Mira listened quietly. The words felt heavy, but true. "Maybe," she said, "Earthborn never left. We just changed how we fight." Varen smiled again. "Perhaps, whatever the truth, you have given this academy something it forgot hope." Days turned to weeks. The group that trained under Mira became known as the Earth Unit. They learned balance, patience, and courage. When storms hit the academy's dome, they stood outside and trained under the rain. When the gravity generators malfunctioned, they used it as another lesson in control. Other instructors started to copy her methods. They stopped focusing only on weapons and started teaching endurance and calm. The academy began to change. One night, while Mira looked at the stars from the training ground, Tyron walked up beside her. "Instructor Varen said the next command test is coming. You will lead our group in the trials. Are you ready?" She smiled gently. "I am always ready. Not because I know I will win, but because I know I can rise again if I fall." He looked at her with respect. "You really believe that, don't you?" "Yes, that is the Earth way." When the trial day came, every cadet of the academy gathered in the main arena again. This time, it was not for a duel, but for a test of teamwork and endurance. The teams had to pass through a series of challenges: heat, cold, low gravity, and dark tunnels. Mira led her team through every test. They fell, stumbled, and got up again. Where others panicked, they stayed calm. Where others argued, they worked together. In the end, Myra's team reached the final checkpoint first. But even when the signal rang, she did not raise her hand to claim victory. She helped a fallen cadet from another team stand up and cross the line too. The crowd saw it all. Instructor Varen watched from the stands, his eyes proud. "Now they understand," he said softly to himself. That evening, in the closing ceremony, Varen called Mira to stand beside him once more. The hall was filled with light. "Cadets," he said, "when I first came here, I taught you not to challenge Earthborn. I was wrong. Challenge them. Learn from them. Because every challenge you give them will only make them stronger, and through them you will become stronger too." He turned to Mira. "You reminded us what courage means. You showed that true power is not about control. It is about never giving up." The cadets cheered, not in mockery, but in true respect. Mira stood tall but humble. When the ceremony ended, she walked out into the quiet night. She looked up at the stars again. Somewhere among them, the blue light of Earth was still shining, small but bright. She smiled softly. "Still here," she whispered. "Still standing?" And in that moment, the galaxy remembered the name Earthborn once more, not as a warning, but as a promise.